I dedicate this next record to the soul brothers of the 1st Infantry Divisions. Be safe.
What is going on, guys? It's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, with a review of Spike Lee's latest film, The Five Bloods. It's coming to Netflix on June 12th. Before we dive into the review, do me a favor, go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, because we are going to have interviews on our YouTube channel with Spike Lee and the cast of The Five Bloods. In addition, we have a ton of great entertainment content that we're putting on our YouTube channel all the time, so we want to make sure that you guys catch every single video that we post.
We've been dying for this country from the very get.
There are things to real.
We give this goal to our people.
I want to start by talking about how extremely relevant this film is to what's going on in the news cycle at this current moment, which might sound strange to you because if you watched the trailer for The Five Bloods, it looks like a Vietnam War story, and it is. But Spike has figured out a way to really comment about how the pain that was put on these five characters, these soldiers who grew up together and went to Vietnam together, how everything that they endured back during the war effort connects directly to the lives that they are living right now. And the story does divide itself evenly between present day and the past when they were in the Vietnam War, because it's a bit of a treasure hunt story as well. Even though that's a small subplot to the movie, and there's a whole lot else going on in addition to the treasure hunt aspect, but these characters buried gold that they found back when they were fighting in the Vietnam War. And now, as older men, contemporary men, they want to go back to Vietnam to retrieve it. And they're constantly discussing about the leader who led them back when they were in Vietnam, who they lost during the war effort, and honoring his memory. And that character is played by Chadwick Boseman. But we also spent a lot of time in the contemporary day where characters played by Clark Peters and Isaiah Whitlock and Delroy Lindo are taking us on this mission to retrieve this gold and also honor the legacy of the captain they left behind. But as these guys who have incredible chemistry together discuss where they are in their lives, they get into a lot of the politics and social changes that we are discussing as a society. And Spike finds really impressive ways to make problems that you think would have been more in line with things that people were facing in the 60s and 70s, still connect to things that we're facing today. And he uses really strong historical examples of things that African-American people faced in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, to almost make a point that things never change. That these guys who endured certain struggles tied to inequality and the fact that they were fighting for a country that didn't give them the full rights that they even thought that they deserve, still look at examples of strong inequality in today's society. And by drawing that distinct line between events of the 60s and events of today, Spike is sort of saying to everybody, like, look how far we've come, and yet not a whole lot has changed. And that's a huge problem that feels like it needs to be discussed. And the movie does a really great job of tackling that. Just to totally emphasize this, there's even a scene toward the end of the movie, and it's not a spoiler in any way, shape, or form, but it's a Black Lives Matter chant where a group of people have gotten together to essentially start a protest. And they are handing out Black Lives Matter paraphernalia. And I asked Spike during our interview, is that a scene that you filmed, somewhat recently and added it into the film because you wanted to really comment on things that were going on in the national news right now? And he said, no, that scene was actually always part of the script. They filmed it a while ago, back when he was putting the movie together. There was no way that he could have actually recognized what was going on in cities around the country today and added that to the film. So it goes to show that even while he was working on this film months ago and has a finished product coming to Netflix on June 12th, it's still a message that needs to be repeated over and over again for people to hear. Okay, so we talked about how relevant The Five Bloods is, but I have to celebrate this cast because the ensemble that Spike Lee has put together for this picture is outstanding and completely elevates the material. You're going to hear a lot about the performance of Delroy Lindo, who has worked with Spike Lee over the years in several powerful films, but this might be his finest performance in a Spike Lee joint. He plays a character named Paul, and the reason why he stands at odds with the other members of the Bloods, which is the nickname that the group has given themselves, is because he's a right-wing conservative. It's pretty funny that Spike has him wear a red Make America Great Again hat. He talks about the fact that he supports Trump. It triggers a lot of conversations about the differences between these men and why they feel the way that they feel. But there's also a ton of secrets that I obviously can't get into that Delroy Lindo is carrying in his character's soul, and the way that he is able to go through the different depths to explore the demons that this character is wrestling with. You're going to see so many different sides of Delroy Lindo's performance.
Being back here, it is not easy. I'm broken, man.
Listen, I think it's crazy in June to try to make any kind of Oscar predictions, and especially in a year where the theatrical releases are as crazy as they are, and we don't really know what films are going to be competing for awards attention at the end of the year. But if Delroy Lindo does not have a Best Actor nomination when the Oscars roll around and the Academy recognizes the greatest performances of 2020, then the game is rigged and completely broken and kind of a joke at this point, because his performance is off the charts great. But he's joined in the Bloods by Clark Peters, who has been doing fantastic work over the years, Isaiah Whitlock Jr., the two of them are together on The Wire. Norm Lewis is fantastic in the film. When they do the flashbacks, Chadwick Boseman is outstanding as their leader, this guy that the Bloods all looked up to and deeply miss. His absence from the group is palpable, and the chemistry that they all have together in the flashbacks and also in the modern day scenes is just incredible. A relative newcomer, Jonathan Majors, plays Delroy Lindo's son in the movie, and he is also outstanding, a talent that we absolutely have to keep an eye on as he continues to go through different roles. And I love that, people really rise to the challenge of working with Spike Lee and delivering on the material that he gives them. And the performances across the board in Da 5 Bloods are just some of the best I've seen on screen this year. I want to focus on the stellar production values of Da 5 Bloods. And listen, I'm not breaking any news when I tell you that Spike Lee is an incredible filmmaker. But even at the level that we've expected from him, Da 5 Bloods goes through a whole nother level that, I don't want to say we haven't seen from Spike in a long time, because BlacKkKlansman was also an excellent film. But the work of composer Terrence Blanchard and particularly cinematographer Newton Thomas Sigel in this new Netflix film is off the charts unbelievable. Terrence Blanchard, who has been working with Spike Lee for years upon years, they always find different ways to collaborate and deliver wildly unexpected material, and usually it fits the period. For BlacKkKlansman, there was a lot of 70s groove and urban funk, and it fit the material really well. For Da 5 Bloods, Terrence Blanchard actually composes what feels like a Dirty Dozen type heroic war epic score, and it's just unbelievable. I know it's one of these things I'm going to be listening to separate from the movie on its own. And then, the work by Newton Thomas Sigel, who has worked on incredible visual films like Drive and Three Kings, and he most recently did Extraction with the Russo brothers. It goes to show the type of money that Netflix is willing to pour into these original films. They are giving budgets to storytellers that are relevant nowadays, whether it be Martin Scorsese, whether it be Alfonso Cuarón, whether it be Spike Lee. So when you want to see new films from these masters, you're turning to the streaming service and you're getting these films will come with outstanding production value. And I have to single out the work by both Blanchard and Thomas Sigel for the collaboration that they have here with Spike Lee. All right, I've been praising this film, which means I'm giving it 5 stars. There is literally one scene where something happens where I thought, that's a little convenient. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, because obviously that would be a bit of a spoiler, and we can have this conversation after you guys have had a chance to see it. But the scene is not nearly as distracting enough to take away from the full impact that is achieved by Da 5 Bloods. The cast, again, was just unbelievable. They are being handed incredible material to sink their teeth into, and Spike does such an amazing job of bringing a story that should touch on a historical time and making it relevant to today's headlines, which is amazing to me. I was astounded at how the history and the lessons from a past generation are almost still falling on deaf ears, and to be reminded by that in a screenplay like Da 5 Bloods is pretty amazing. Now, it has a little bit of a war element to it as well, too. It's a difficult film to watch sometimes because of the violence, and it pulls no punches in terms of the social commentary that it wants to get across. And I mean, if you're watching a Spike Lee movie, you know what to expect from it. But the fact that he's still delivering lessons like this in outstanding cinematic exercises at this stage of his career is beyond impressive to me, and Defy Blood is going to rank as one of the best films that I've seen in 2020, regardless of what I watch for the rest of the year. So tell me if you agree with me. It's your turn to head down to the comments after you have seen the movie and tell me what you think of the new Spike Lee joint. Whether you agree with me that it's one of the best films that you've seen this year. And granted, I know, look, we haven't seen a whole lot. We've been in a bit of a delay and we expect the back half of the year to be really loaded with, outstanding films. But if they all reach the pinnacle of what Defy Bloods accomplishes, then we're in store for an outstanding year. If you don't like it, tell me why. I want to hear from you guys about your strongest opinions with regards to Spike Lee's latest, and I'll go down there and interact with you guys, and we'll sort of, trade opinions back and forth. While you are down in the comment section, of course, do me a favor, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, go over to the page and find our junket interviews with the cast of Defy Bloods, and a ton of other great interviews that we've been doing with celebrities via at-home type stuff or on the Real Blend podcast, which I'm lucky enough to co-host. Basically, we have a ton of great content on our YouTube page, so by hitting subscribe and turning on your notifications, it ensures that you don't miss a single one.